I was a late reader. My mom was working full time, and so when I went to K1, we had a combination kindergarten, first grade. I was the only kid who didn't know how to read, which they did not know at first. And so they would go around and they would say, they would have everybody read a little bit, and I, being the little tyrant that I was, would just fold my arms. I'm not going to read. And when they said, why are you, and I said, well, you should fire the teacher. She's a bad teacher. And then I finally broke down in my Oscar-winning moment and said, I never learned to read. And so I had to learn. And my wonderful teacher, Mrs. Kadish, gave my mom a bunch of recommendations for books. And after work every day, we would work together. And once I found that, I was an only child, so it was like discovering an entire world of people to keep me company. When I was a kid, I loved Madeleine L'Engle. I loved Tamora Pierce. Alana was my heroine. I loved The Witch of Blackbird Pond. I had this book called Cat Witch by Una Woodruff that nobody remembers anymore that I absolutely adored. It was about a cat who became a witch. Twist. And I remember also there was a story called Many Moons by James Thurber, which was one of the first picture books I really fell in love with. And it's a very sophisticated book. It's all about truth and wisdom. And I remember very specifically learning the word surfeit from that book because the princess gets sick on a surfeit of raspberry tarts. We also had, when I was a kid, something called Superscope Storytellers, and they were these tapes or records that you could listen to and follow along in the book. And so very early on, that was the way that I was learning to read and reading. Because again, my mom was working full time. So this was like having somebody to sound out words for you and tell you stories, even when you were by yourself. The way I learned vocabulary was by picking up books that maybe were too advanced for me, or that maybe weren't, but that authors had built language into that was a little bit more of a reach for me. I learned from context. I learned from just wanting to be a better reader. I would challenge myself by picking a book off of a shelf. And I think it's a mistake to write down to kids of any age.